Hey, good people. Sammy Ashe here, Executive Director of the Ashe Academy, and your host of our Inspire, Uplift, Engage podcast. Before we get right into the show, here's your friendly reminder for our spring collection contest to win money for submitting a design that illustrates the arts and STEM in harmony. The deadline is April 30th, 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You got this. Winners are chosen by likes, so make sure you get your pieces up there on socials and tag us at the Ash Academy using the hashtag Spring Collection Contest. Those top three prizes are $250, $150, and $75. So make sure you participate. You could win big. In other news, our contribution to April's Financial Literacy Month is a series of videos highlighting how to pay for college. Tune in on Facebook and Instagram Tuesdays and Thursdays for ways to avoid or significantly reduce student debt. Now, let's get started with the show. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Ashe Academy's Inspire, Uplift, Engage podcast. I'm Sammy Ashe, the Executive Director of the Ashe Academy, and today we are joined by Michele Moore. She is an avid cyclist that lives in North Carolina and works for a financial services firm as a digital analytics manager in marketing. So we will talk about all of your journey in just a moment, but thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Great. Right. Glad to be here. And thank you for inviting me. I appreciate this.
Absolutely. All right. So let's get into it. What is your, journey? Can you take us through your journey to get to tech? So it's sounding like you work in fintech or financial
Yeah.
tech, but how did you get there? Where did you get your start?
So I started actually back in high school. When I graduated from high school, I was looking for a part-time job. And my first job was at HBJ. It's Hardcore Brace Jovanovich, their publisher in Orlando, Florida. And they were looking for a word processor. That was the term we used back then. I won't say how far back, but it's been a while. 1980s to be exact. But they were looking for a word processor. And I thought, well, let me just see what this means, because today we use different terms to mean different things. So I thought, let me just figure out what exactly do they need me to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was for the Hartford, sending out denial letters to claims for insurance. So, and it was, and I ended up getting the job, but I had to process letters on a Wang. Now, for those of you who may not know what a Wang is, it's a computer created by Yinlu Wang. He was back in, I guess, the early 20s from China. But it was the first sort of process computer that we worked on. It's basically an ancient computer, but you just press a couple buttons and you have a green screen and all that. But that was my first sort of introduction into the tech world. My next role was for another financial services company, but just doing backup tapes. So taking one tape, backup tape out and putting the next one in. And that title was a computer operator. And I don't know where I got the interest or love for tech. I just thought I was just always curious about, different facets of the computer and what does it do and what language do you use to make it work. But that's kind of how I got started in the Stone Age.
We won't call it the Stone Age, but even growing up through the 90s, that is a definite throwback for me. Just the difference of screens, and then kind of funny how just having some exposure to tech, there's some kind of throwbacks to those screen layouts for code, how it's they want a black screen and then everything else they're working on it. So I'm like, wait, that's kind of full circle if we really think about it. But did you have any teachers or professors along the way that kind of propelled you into that, or was it just your own curiosity that
it was my own curiosity back then, but I knew I wanted to know more. And instead of being sort of a backdoor, I felt like I was backdoor operator. I wanted to get more on the software side because I was really heavily into the hardware side. So I thought, well, I need probably education, some formal education around this. And I decided to go to school. Initially, I didn't go to college right out of high school. So I went to school, and my alma mater is UNC Charlotte, and I majored in information systems, and I learned a lot more about all the different many facets of tech, not just the hardware side, but software and also the impact of technology,
Hmm.
and how we use it. So that was probably the game changer was just attending classes, and learning and how to code and how to um, how to write a program. Like one of our projects, we had to create the Microsoft Windows calculator, and everything that you would do to package software between writing the manual, making sure the calculators operate so it's error free,
Hmm.
pushing the software group created a box to put it in. We did everything as a team to create this calculator, this Windows calculator. But it was very challenging because you don't think about how difficult things are. You just use technology.
Yeah.
You may not think about the things that go on behind the scenes. So it's great exposure to learn that. So
Awesome. Awesome. So how long between your, I guess, your initial professional career and going back into school after not being in school after high school, um, how long was that period? Because people need to know, like, okay, it's not at the end of the world if you didn't go right when you were
right.
18 and you decided the rest of your life at 18. Like, that's just a crazy thing that we like expect out of people. So, like, how long was that period of like, okay, I'm just working or I'm working on something else, but then I do need to go to get a degree and make that
It
decision to
was
do so.
it was probably an 8 year period because I was doing community college classes
Hmm.
and then working at the same time and then exploring tech. And then when I got to my senior middle core level classes, then I had to I had to decide on which concentration, and that was information systems under the business umbrella. But
Hmm.
initially, I was just going to just take business administration like what everybody else does. But when I looked at all the majors, I thought, I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to manage anyone. I don't want to go into finance or accounting. And it was not in economics. I was like, none of that interests me, but technology did. So that's why I chose information systems. And on my later part of the 8 year time frame, I realized that I need to try to get a internship to sort of take what I've learned and see if I can apply it to the real world. Because everything looks great in books and in classes,
Absolutely.
but I wanted to put it to practice and see if I actually learned anything. So,
Absolutely.
um, but
Tell
yeah,
us about
that
those
was the time frame.
internships, those early on, like what did those look like?
They were great. So we started out with there was one company that wanted us to come in and just go in and just code all of their. They were migrating from one system to another,
Hmm.
so we had to mirror everything that was on their from their old system to the new system. So there's quite a bit of programming in C++, Java, JavaScript, and that was a fun project because we got to see how companies use tech, but mainly how primitive it was just to migrate. It was very lengthy and then a lot of checks to make sure that this worked, and I don't know, it just felt like there was a much better way to do things, and if we could just have more time to bring it back to our college students, we could have said, okay, this is a better way to do it, but they were
Hmm.
paying us, we just did exactly what they told us to do, but at the same time we were thinking about there's got to be a more streamlined way to make sure that we mirror the data without the manual steps. But that was the first internship, and then there was another one at the library where we kind of coded all their books, made all the tags on the library books. We created those and did that in an automatic way too. But that was a fun project. We felt like we were adding value, but at the same time, um, you know, we felt like okay, we got a grade in school, but now we really know what we're doing.
Hmm.
So that was a solidified way of confirming. Okay, we know what we're doing now. So
I hope people are
yeah,
getting with all the different venues that you're mentioning that tech touches every bit of the world. Like everyone
Yeah.
needs some sort of technology to function unless you're completely off the grid. Like shout out to the people
Yeah.
completely off the grid. You're probably not listening to our podcast, but still, like even within the arts, like we use technology, and it takes a creative mind to create new avenues for technology. So like it all interworks. So that's what we're here for. We appreciate
Yeah.
that kind of duality. Um,
Mm.
what would you say is the most challenging part of your job? Oh, actually, before we even get there, what do you do
Yeah.
as in your position as a digital analytics manager? Let's kind of
Yeah.
get
So
pull back the layers on a
get to
position title.
that. Yeah, so starting out, I do a lot of what I call a lot of labor with the whole programming coding, but I migrated to software and learning analytics. But I started out at this company maybe 15 years ago, and my first role was to basically generate a list, marketing list. And so I would use a CRM tool using SAS, programming that language to extrapolate the audience and segment it based on, demographics or whatever. Take that list, make it, send it to the vendor. They send it out to the customer. And then we go back and reevaluate the marketing campaign. But we were using Siebel CRM tool. It was Oracle back end to process the large amounts of data sets. I enjoyed that, but it was very mundane. I only had one lens of what was happening to the campaign, and I was very inquisitive. I wanted to know what happened. Was it impactful? Did we have any conversions? So I decided to expand and look for a career in analytics, so I can see the entire picture from end to end and understand. I said, well, if I want to know that, I need to get in a different position. So when I applied for analytics, I had no experience on the web, didn't understand how the web worked. I was more of a offline data, SAS, data, more of a flat file person. But online, I didn't realize there were so many moving parts, and the learning curve was huge. So while I was not able to get into that field initially, I just decided it was a sink or swim moment. I was going to train under someone else. There was a reorg at the company, and the other two guys left, and I ended up being the only person on the entire team. They let my manager go. So I thought, what the heck?
Oh my
So
gosh.
what I was, yeah, it
Well,
was
you're the lucky
very,
one if you're the last one standing. My gosh.
well, I didn't want to leave because I didn't accomplish my goal. My goal was to learn this.
Yeah.
So I thought, let me
Hmm.
stay. And so we hired some Adobe consultants to come on board to teach me and also handle some of the work. So I was learning, training, and also processing requests at the same time. And when it comes to analytics. So to answer your question now, what I physically was doing was basically measuring and basically measuring online data through what it was a tool called Psychatalyst, measuring to see how many times a person would hit the page, what their path was on our site, what areas they engaged in. And we married that data with offline data to know who was engaging on our site. So we can sort of serve up content that resonates with them to get them to purchase our products. So that was the end goal. But to understand that, I first had to get off the whole absolute world. When I was offline doing SaaS CRM, if it was 10,000 people in that data set, then I had to understand and account for every single person in that data set. But online, it's all interpretation. It's based on a certain period of time. Like if you were on the site, let's say at 12 o'clock, and you came back at 5 o'clock, we can say you entered the site twice a day, but we don't know if that's a unique visit or not. It depends on the time frame. So it was a bit challenging to go from different worlds, but it was a lot more interesting to me. But that's what I do. It's just, you know, um, online statistician is what I usually tell people. they
You
can
know
they get to
what?
that.
When I went to get my MBA, that's when I actually fell in love with stats. Like all throughout high
Uh-huh.
school, I don't know why I did not care for it at all, like at all. Yeah, didn't care for numbers at all. Got to undergrad and it was like, not interested in that either. Just get through the math requirement for my arts degree. And then like
Right.
I was forced into it for my MBA, and I was like, I actually like this. Like this is actual things that are actionable after you figure things out, like based on
Yeah.
okay, behavior and whatnot. It's like, oh, this actual like sample that I'm doing and this research that I'm doing means something to me now. So absolutely see like why you would fall in love with that.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
it's more of a use case when you get to that stage. I wish they would teach it at the same application at the high school and college level.
mhm.
So, or even at the elementary school level, just you just give me an example of how are you going to use the data, and then I can see, okay, this is what I need to do. But in math, they just tell you to learn this, memorize it, and pass a test. You don't really know its practical use for it. So that's great. You've got a chance to learn that at the MBA level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
marketing has taken over my life. So like all of these moments, I'm like, yes, it means something. I love it. Um, and it was always something I wanted to learn throughout, just as an inquisitive person, especially
Yeah.
since my undergrad degree is film. I'm like, how do I actually reach people? Like, I know how to create something that I like, but like, how do I actually bring it to people? So super
Yeah.
important. And that has transformed into so many different industries outside of the entertainment. So, back to
Absolutely.
you. Where do you find things most challenging at your job?
Um, I would say probably just explaining to people what this means, what analytics means, and just
The most
because
fun part is translation.
it's, it's it is very challenging because people sometimes will use web statisticians or use our role to validate their role, but they
Mm,
sometimes don't know what their role is, right? They have to know their why and why they were hired. They can't say, well, we used to do this at the other company, or I have budget, or they come up with different reasons as to why they need us to validate their cost to spend. And we want to start with a hypothesis. It's like, what do you think is going to happen? We start with a theory. That way, at the end, we're trying to confirm that theory. But if you have no idea where we're going, we're just giving you numbers and you don't know what they mean. So it's challenging to just explain that. And also, our credibility is always on the table every time we have a dialogue and we present numbers. We're
hmm
constantly questioned. Our credibility is constantly questioned because the person is not familiar with what we do and they think the numbers should be higher. You ever have that? You see a podcast, you're like, wait a minute, something's wrong. You did the wrong thing. My numbers should be much higher. It's like, well, what makes you think that? So that's always a challenge.
Oh yeah, which metric is important to you and why, and where can it actually be for you? Just judging upon where you are, like that all comes into it. Like it's
Yeah,
not just one data point and then it's the end of the story. Like
exactly.
I wish more people would
Yeah.
know that or come to terms with it. Now, what's the most rewarding part, other than people finally getting it and you're like, okay, you're speaking my language?
Well, yes, the rewarding part is seeing our work in a sort of a impactful way. So if there was a problem that we solved, which is what we are, we're problem solvers, right? When we solve a problem and the end result is the customer is much happier or things are much easier for them to do, we're impactful in a positive way. That's the most rewarding part. Is helping someone through numbers. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Now, is there something that you learned along the way that you wish you had known from the very beginning that you're like, if I had known this thing, I would be in a much different place than I am now?
Yeah, I would have probably started with software instead
Okay.
of. I felt like I went through the trenches too long,
Mm,
and I could have jumped on this side because right now I don't do a lot of programming. I'm more of a strategist,
hmm
but using numbers to drive strategy. So I'm more consulting, and I like that part. But I wish I had known this was going to be the fun part, and I would have started with software and then kind of got here sooner. The path would have been less. Um, I don't know. I probably wouldn't appreciate like I do now, but I probably would tell my younger self skip learning all the hardware. Maybe also more mentorships. Look for some more mentorships that look like you, um,
Mm.
and more people in your field, because they're out there, but maybe not many. But at least try harder to look for mentors. That yeah,
Let's talk about it. Did you have
yeah.
any mentors along the way, and what did that look like?
My professors were my mentors,
Okay.
and they were. It's because it's a predominantly male-oriented field. Technology is, and 20 years ago, it definitely was. And I didn't see many that looked like me.
Mhm.
So, and you know what's interesting is I never even thought about the differences until someone brought it up to me, um, in a way where they said, "Oh, that what made you what sparked your interest in technology?" And it was an interesting question because I didn't understand what they were trying to ask me. They were asking me because I looked different. And so that's when I realized, oh, okay, that's why they're asking me. Because everyone else is here. They're not asking that question of them. They're asking it of me. So I went to an Adobe marketing convention, and it was huge. And I was very surprised to see there was not, a lot of chocolate chips. But it was great to be in a space where I can learn so many different facets of marketing and analytics and how the world's combined. But I would like to, but going forward, I would like to bring someone else along if I were to change my path in any way. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah,
That is what we're here for as well, to kind of bridge
yeah,
those gaps, because I feel like there are a lot of tokens in whatever
yeah,
industries. Like, we're out there, we do everything possible that can be done. We are there,
yeah,
but we may be the only one at a given company or some of a few. And I'm like, I would just love for us to just bring those numbers up at the very least, like whatever impact we can make to bring those numbers up, because it's not like it's difficult for us to do whatever function in these different. We just may not know about these positions, or know that you don't. Not for every position do you need to code to get into tech. Like, that's
that's
something that
true.
we're trying to expand
Yeah,
horizons on. So
yeah, I
awesome,
agree.
awesome. Um, So, aside from whatever may bring you joy at work, what brings you joy outside of work?
Cycling brings me joy at outside of work. I love cycling. I cycle probably 3 times a week,
Oh,
as
wow.
little as 20 miles and much as 100 miles on the bike. And I have several groups that I'm a member of, and we all just exercise and chat together. It's a fun, healthy way to let off steam from the day, and plus it's very challenging too. It's enough to where I can you know think about obstacles in life that I deal with, and I said, well, I climbed that hill. That's a metaphor for life. I
Mhm.
can get through anything. So yeah, I love that, and I also love swimming and participate in triathlons. So
Awesome,
those are my
awesome.
passions. Yeah.
Now you're making me think of, okay, so while you guys are doing these long, I would, what do you call, like if you're cycling for a long period of time, what is it called? Is there a thing before
Um,
I butcher terminology?
oh no, no, it's not. It's just a long ride. That's all.
Just okay,
Yeah.
right. There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So is that a time of reflection for you? Like, is that where you kind of sort some things out in your life? You're like, because you're going to be on there for potentially an hour or so, possibly. Um, is that kind of taking you out of like, okay, I am cycling for an hour? Like, does that take your mind off of that? I'm just thinking of it as being very rigorous, and like you have to be present for that hour. Um,
True. Well, I do think about things, other things, but I mainly just take in the view, like the birds
hmm.
singing, how the sun feels on my skin, how the trees look, and then the flowers, and then the bumps in the road. I observe all those things that which, like I said, are metaphors for life. So I get over this speed bump or this hole in the road, but there's other roads that are smoother. So, but it gives me a chance to say, okay, well, if you have an issue or something going on in your life, it's it's going to pass. Things are going to, even when we have rain in our rides, it's okay. We'll have another day that's sunny. So it gives me a more optimistic view on life. And also, I say, well, whatever you handled at work, it can't be as hard as this hill you're about to climb. And when I get through the hill, I say, see, that wasn't so bad. So it gives, it helps release endorphins, but it also gives me a chance to mentally get healthier. So that's what I use it for.
It's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, after all that beauty, I would like to talk about some of the worst advice you've been given along your career. Like, what's something that someone said that you're like, what?
Yeah. I remember there was a huge stigma. It probably still goes on with if you don't like initially when I was sort of entering this field, I didn't have an undergrad, I didn't have a degree,
Mhm.
but I was still working, and I was working in environments where normally you would need a degree. But because my inquisitive nature, my logical thinking, I'm a very logical thinker. I was able to complete projects maybe before I should have, but I just acted like I had a degree. And the worst advice that people give you is like, oh, well, you can't apply for that job until you have an undergrad, or you can't do that until you have an undergrad. You have to have a PhD, you have to have a master's degree. So people constantly put limits on you. And I would tell them and tell anyone, if someone does that, just ignore them. Only until you hit the brick wall, then you know the limit. And when you know the limit at that time, that's temporary. Just figure out what you need to do to get around it. But don't allow others to just tell you, what you can and cannot do. So that's the worst advice I've received.
Come on, come on, Pastor. Come on, just get around, find out the wall, get around it eventually. Don't hit the wall.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what's some of the best advice that you've received?
The best advice I received was to, whenever someone would, I guess, tell me a problem, repeat the problem, make sure that you understand it, and also it's an iterative process. It's nothing final. Never think that it's one and done. Just go back to it. Just there's more than one path. Whenever you're trying to provide measurement in a report, just don't be hard on yourself and think about the process in terms of lost words. It's an iterative process, and never think that this is the final
Yeah.
review. Always go back and correct yourself or
I
whatever.
mean,
So,
having worked in tech, there's always a new release. There's always another bug to fix, or there's something like, hey, didn't we fix that
right,
months ago? Yeah, but it broke
right.
again. We have to work on it again. So yeah, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Nothing's final. Nothing's truly fixed, most sadly.
yes, it's not at all. There's always opportunity to make it better or to
Mhm.
improve.
Absolutely.
So another update, as you
There we
said. So,
go.
yeah.
All right, this is the perfect opportunity to segue into our final Q&A section. So let's
Okay.
go ahead.
All right.
Who is your biggest inspiration?
Um, Black women. That's my biggest inspiration. I don't have one person, but when it comes to anything, any obstacle, we always manage to get around it. We have a swag and a following. Anything we do, anything we come up with, we rock. So yes, and every time I'm around us, I get inspired. So yes, that's what inspires me.
Absolutely share the same sentiment you can see with our leadership in my team. Full Black women. Shout out to you all. Next up, I always mix up with the order of these. Inspire, uplift. Who
Uh,
do you hope to uplift with your work?
yes, uplift. I would love to uplift young Black girls, that are maybe in a sort of disenfranchised way, that don't have access to tech, and that we can, that I can sort of explain, because there's many different facets. Even when
Yep.
someone says digital analytics, what does that mean? Are you behind a computer coding? Are you generating a PowerPoint presentation? Are you talking to a client? What are you doing exactly? Because we use one word to mean many things in tech. It's not, not very clear.
Yeah.
So I would love to break down that wall so there's access and they can figure out, just expose them to everything and say, okay, and then they decide, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to, just give them more opportunities and exposure. That's what I aspire to do, to uplift.
Awesome. We will have to talk about how we can help you extend that reach, because we would
Yeah.
love to see that.
Okay.
And then how do you stay engaged with your motivation? So what keeps you going?
Yes, that's a great question, because as you know, since I started working on the wing, and today that's a very long time frame in trying to, as you know, tech moves all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out how to stay fresh. And what I do is I look at different roles on LinkedIn and look at what they require. And I said, well, I don't know anything about that. So I go on Google, search for it, and see if there's a, free class on LinkedIn or YouTube that someone's explaining what it is. Because if I don't know how to use it, I at least want to be able to speak to it in an interview, or at least understand it. So like this R, Python, all these different languages, I'm like, what are they talking about? And do I even need it? My latest thing I'm doing is Google Analytics course. I'm taking that course. It's a great course, and it gives you all the steps on how to apply Google Analytics.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time that, when you're working for a company, they just need you to do something and hit the ground running. Your personal development is just that, personal, and you have to figure out on your own what you know and don't know. But that's what I do to try to stay engaged. Is that, and also I attend webinars, different tech webinars, and different conferences. For Black women in tech, there's one, and then there's another conference, the SaaS conference. I'll attend that, the Adobe Marketing Conference. Those are great to network and also find out, what's happening. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
We might have to post some links to some upcoming conferences and see if we could sponsor someone's attendance. Now that you're making me think about that, might have to do
Yeah.
that. Something you said about researching like roles that you're interested in, or even like maybe your same role and seeing what's required of them. That is something I used to do before I got to a place where I kind of reached a general understanding of someone might ask for a certain platform, but it might just
Yeah.
be like this general thing is what we need to accomplish. So if I
Mm.
know a certain customer relationship management software and know how to function within what's required of that, I don't have to know that specific one that you're asking for. I might be able to
Right.
say yes in the interview, and Google University can help me out in the interim. But like, or Google University, YouTube University, all of those things like that could just be like, oh, I'm going to just need to learn this skill set on this
Right.
software. But like, I
Yeah.
know how to edit video anywhere. Like, just
Right.
let me figure out the drop downs of how the hotkeys for it. I know how to do it anywhere. So I'm not going to say, oh, no, I don't have experience with that in an interview. Super
Yeah.
important for people to pick up on. Students out there, please don't
Yeah.
say no in the interview process. Please research what is being asked
Yeah.
of you and see if you could say yes, or you may not have experience with that, but you do have experience with this.
Right.
And then start
Right.
mentioning all the activities within there, because like, oh, I just need you to do all those activities, so you could figure it out once you get
Yeah.
here, so they'll be fine.
That's exactly right.
So
Yeah,
awesome.
tools are, you're making a great point. Tools are tools. And then ask the interviewer, how do they use the tools? And you may
Mhm,
not be familiar with the semantics, as I call it, but you're
mhm.
actually familiar with the process. As long as you're familiar with the process, you can, rinse and repeat. You can apply anything.
There
So
we
that's a
go.
great thing. I'm doing it for a different reason. I'm doing it because, as you know, I've been in this for a long time, probably 20 years. So there's an ageism thing that occurs. And if y'all want to sound like I'm still sort of hip, if you will, because that's important in technology, they want to know if she's one of those, she can just know how to click a mouse, she knows how to move a mouse, and that's it. Or if she's someone that's really versed in
Y'all got
technology.
to stop if you're saying that about people that have 20-year careers saying they just know how to click a mouse. That is disrespectful.
Right. Right. Well, it's just that you may be around it, but how well versed you are with the technology that's happening
Exactly.
today, right? What you know may be outdated, and in this industry, not knowing, what's happening tomorrow is being outdated, right? So you have to be careful and learn and stay abreast of things. So that's one of the main reasons why I do it. But I was, of course, being facetious, but that is a real concern for some of us.
Maybe not mouse clicking, but still things, ageism is super important to highlight that,
Yeah.
just as much as on the low end of, not, it wouldn't be ageism, but like people that are new to a certain industry, like you're learning, okay, but also don't discredit anyone who has been here for a while, that they
Yeah.
can do a
Yeah.
job just as well as anyone else. So
Right. That's
absolutely.
right.
Um, I did want to highlight what's next for you. So do you have anything coming up? Do you have any initiatives that you're a part of? That you're
I
gearing
do
some things
not.
up?
I do not, but I would like to. I think that the COVID, there's quite a few things that, would have been happening last year, would have happened last year, are, on the back burner. But I'm starting to see, some resurgence and things starting to come alive. So I'm hoping things like, webinars and conferences and just even setting up financial classes. That's one of the things I want to start doing is just financial classes for Black and Brown community on how they can use tech to manage their finances, especially budgeting. And it's really easy through an app. I just don't know if that's something that we're interested in doing, if we trust the apps, So I'm hoping I can, teach financial literacy, but also let them know that they can have their budget on the go. Because I don't know if anyone's walking around with their laptops and computers. I'm still a laptop person, but you're probably a laptop person, I
I am
assume.
definitely on my laptop right now, for
Okay.
for sure. But I have a desktop at my day job, so I'm a hybrid. I have to be. I
Oh,
would
that's
say
great.
anything you want to do with that, we are more than happy to help you out with and help
Okay.
facilitate that and collaborate.
Okay,
Please,
great.
we would love to, especially since April is Financial Literacy Month. So we will be
Yes.
definitely doing something for that. If it isn't
Okay.
already announced by the time this episode goes up, it will be announced what we have going on there. So we might rope you in for that as well. But on
Well,
that,
tell me about
sure, sure,
your
sure.
company. Like, what do you guys do? Like, yeah.
So the Ashe Academy was started out of my own desire to address some of the things I didn't have coming
Okay.
along in my career and school. So mentorships was like, I cannot say that I had a formal mentor. I
Mhm.
like I had some great professors along the way. Shout out to
Mhm.
them. I won't discredit you, but like I didn't have anybody that I connected with on a mentor level that I say, okay, that is my mentor. Scholarships,
Mhm.
money is just always going to be a major issue with education, just the expenses going up for tuition and all that stuff. And anything that I can do for the next generation going into those courses and coursework, because it doesn't always have to be just a 4-year college journey. It could be a conservatory for the arts. It could be a boot camp program that you go into before you go into your career. So I just want to make sure that
Mhm.
people have the finances to cover that, because I am still paying my student loans right now and I'm doing a great job. But like if I didn't have them, that would be another lifestyle I could be living.
Yeah,
So
that's true. That's
um,
very true.
and then parental engagement is super important for us just because that's the support system for these students, but it's also an
Mm.
opportunity for us to talk to people who may not understand that they could go into these careers in the arts and STEM as well. So I would love to just expand horizons for everyone in our communities, people of
Mhm.
color, Black folks. I always start with Black folks because that's just my immediate community, but it
Yeah.
is really
Yeah.
for all people of color
Mhm.
looking to go into these fields. So yeah, that's what we do in a
Okay. That's
nutshell.
awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So.
And how long you been doing this? So,
We just turned 3 in February. So
oh, congrats. Okay.
yes, thank you. Yeah, so yeah, we're excited to see this growth. Like things are falling
Yeah.
into place. So happy to have met you recently and asked you onto this podcast. I'm very quick. This podcast is on season 2. We started Juneteenth of last year, so we're keeping it
Okay.
going, keeping it going.
That's great. I like that. And I like
Absolutely.
that you're meeting your passions and your what you do for your profession together. It's
Absolutely.
sort of the best of both worlds. I mean, I do this because it pays well, but it's not my passion. My passion is really helping other people, and whatever knowledge and avenue or vehicle that I can help, whatever I can share, that's what I want to do. That's my ultimate goal, is just to just use my voice, platform, and knowledge to bring others along. Because I noticed that even in corporate America, we volunteer for functions and do similar, but it's a one-time occurrence. So we can check that volunteer box, but it's bigger than that. You know, it's bigger than that.
Absolutely. So we are happy to facilitate making it a bigger thing for you. For anyone out there, if you are looking to make your purpose, because everybody has to have a job, and you might find something that you're great at that might not be your passion, but you can do your passion on the side. That's, and find passion within your work. There are so many times that I have snuck my way in at my day job, like, oh, the Ashe Academy, and they've shared us in the newsletter. I was like, oh, hey, there we go. We can work this out together. And so many people I've met in tech that I was like, hey, you are a woman in tech who we need to show more of to people. We need to know that you guys are there. And you've been here for multiple years. It's like, okay, can you speak at our gala? Can you speak on our podcast? Just tell people that it exists for them, and there's hope, there's opportunities out there. So absolutely. And on that note, thank you so much, Michele. We appreciate you for joining us. I'm thinking that we will be in contact for other projects very shortly, so you haven't heard less of me just yet. But once again, I am Sammy Ashe, the Executive Director of the Ashe Academy. Thank you guys. Take care.